part of the Salt Lake, Utah, and Utah Valley RIAs, which is Real Estate Investment Associations. And between that and my 4 kids, we stay really busy, which is good. So it's been a great career, very blessed, and I kind of want to go through what got me to where I'm at, and then things I've learned through that process and also in my professional career. So raise your hands of how many family members, how many of you have family members that have doctorate degrees? Raise your hand. Okay, master's degrees, bachelor degrees. Okay, anybody that doesn't have a family member that has a degree. Okay, so I was you guys. Okay, I was going to Taylorsville High School, just down the street, and I had an offer to play baseball at Snow College back then. They had a baseball program, so I thought I'll probably go get a 2-year degree. That was kind of my thoughts, because in my family nobody had a degree. Everybody were kind of entrepreneurs. In college, whether it was an associate's or bachelor's or master's, seemed like it was kind of almost unattainable because it wasn't common in my family. So I went to play baseball at Snow, went to go on a church mission, came home, almost got married at 19, and a whole nother conversation story. During that time, I was trying to figure out life. So I started going to Salt Lake Community College. And I literally had a class in this room and had going for about 4 years. I just didn't know what I was going to do with life. I'm like, I'll probably go to college, but honestly, those people are smart. Like they're smarter than me. I'm not that smart. I felt like I got a 17 on my ACT. You guys know what ACT is? Okay, I got a 17. My brother got an 18. Us combined is what my sister got. She got almost a 35. Okay, she got 34. So I wasn't great at tests, and I'm like, there's just this. We'll see how it goes. Just my biggest thing is don't waste time. Just keep going. Every semester, I just kept going. So I was taking a couple of classes every semester and trying to figure out if I was going to get married young, if I was going to go on a mission, if I was going to go play baseball. I just kept going and stopped quitting. And I felt like I was a super senior. I felt like I've been going to Salt Lake Community for a long time. So I'm sure the academic advisor probably emailed me multiple times, but I don't check my email back then. And I went into her and I said, I'm just curious how much I have left to graduate. And she said, oh, you graduated last semester. Okay, as I'm in classes. This is no joke. I'm still taking classes, and she says I graduated. So I'm like, oh, I guess I'm done with my associates. She goes, well, you should go up to the U of U. And I'm like, okay, I'm not that smart, but I'll go. I'll probably just drop out, when I get married or whatever, go back and finish later. Well, I had so many credits, they had me take 4 undergrad classes that semester that I graduated. So I was applying in the next semester, I took 4 more classes. I had so many credits transfer that after 1 semester as a full-time student at the U as a senior. Okay. So I'm like, man, I might get this thing done. So I'm up there at the U and end up going not just full-time, but more than full-time and busting through it. And my communications teacher, her name was Edna Rogers, she said, Sheldon, have you ever thought about getting your master's degree? I said, Edna, I wasn't even supposed to get my bachelor's degree. Like, I'm out, I was just happy to get a bachelor's because I was thinking I was going to get associates if I was lucky. So graduated from the U and was working. My dad and I were business partners in business. And a few years later, the U ended up introducing a master's in real estate program, which was my passion. That's what I loved. I've been investing for years, and it was just right down my alley. And my wife went, and we went to this info session. We're like, are we going to do this? Because I had, at the time, I had 3 kids, had a church calling. She was on bed rest, pregnant, and she didn't work. She was a stay-at-home mom. So it was going to be pretty hard doing a master's at that time of life. And she goes, if you don't do it, you'll regret it. This is just you. This is your personality of this program. Well, I hadn't taken English or math at this point for like 12 years. Okay. So I spent $2,000 and a whole year of studying for the GMAT. You guys know what the GMAT is? Anybody? So it's a test to get into your master's program for different programs. So I studied, I spent $2,000 and sacrificed a lot for a year. And I go to take the test. I'm like, man, this is the easiest test I've ever taken. But it's because if you don't get the question right, the questions get easier. If you get it wrong, if you get it wrong, it's easier. If you get it right, it's harder. So it was an easy test. I wanted to get about 540. I clicked submit and I got a 380. And I literally, no joke, I'm sitting like this. It's all quiet, it's testing room. And I kind of click it, smile, and I look back like, did I just get punked? because I didn't even know the score went that low. And no joke. So I call my wife and I'm like, she's all excited. How'd you do on your test? How this? I'm like, I bombed it. And she's like, come on. She's like, you always joke around. So really, how'd you do? I go, hon, I didn't even know the score went that low. Okay. How would that feel for you guys? Right. It was a gut check. I was like, my gosh, I'm going to have to take this thing 10 times to get in. But that's how I am. I'll take it 10 times to get in. So I'll come back to that in a minute. As I was going to Slick, my mom went back to school. None of my family had degrees. My mom went back to school at 45 and actually had classes with me here, and we walked and graduated together. Then she went on to the U and we had classes together, and she had her bachelor's degree and wanted to get her master's degree. She went and took the GRE, which is kind of an equivalent of GMAT. One's more business and math, and one's more English. And she bombed it because we're not good at tests. And she quit. Well, for me, I might have this little mental issue. I don't stop. I just got to keep going until I make it happen. And I went through and I took it 3 more times, every time getting better, but not quite where I wanted to be. As I was doing that, I was in this Finance 30/40 class, a prerequisite at the U. And the professor comes up and says, hey, Sheldon, I heard that you got 3 kids and a church calling and your wife's a stay-at-home mom and all this stuff. How come you're not in this real estate program? I'm actually the dean of the program. And I said, because I'm supposed to take the test my 4th time in 2 weeks. And he says, you're not taking that test. And I was like, what? And he goes, I'm going to let you in the program. So I'm so impressed with your work ethic. Did you apply for a scholarship? And I was like, what? No, I didn't apply for a scholarship. I'm not smart enough to get a scholarship. So he goes, you better apply for a scholarship because you're going to get a scholarship tonight. So I ended up getting on the board of the program and had a scholarship for my master's degree. So I went through and did that. My mom saw what I did. My mom went back and took the GRE 3 times and got her master's degree. So my mom now has her master's degree. I have mine. My brother has his. My brother has his. My sister has her bachelor's, and my wife has her associates and going back to get her bachelor's. It completely changed the demographics of our family. My oldest son is almost 22. He's at UVU. And he wants to come do loans with me. You don't need a degree to do mortgages. But he saw the way that my business runs with my education. And he's a year away from getting his bachelor's in finance. And then he'll come work with me and get his MBA. So even though we don't need a degree, I'm a big believer in education. And it wasn't that it was easy for me. I'm not good at tests. I just don't stop. I think this, I want to bring it up because I was literally you guys 20 years ago in this classroom. I didn't know I was going to get a master's. I didn't know if I could get a bachelor's degree. And it happened. So anything you put your mind to, you can do it. Like I firmly believe that. So a couple things, and then I can ask questions. How am I on time?
You're great.
Flight threads. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So number one, I want to kind of explain, besides investing in real estate, I feel like that's the best investment. Really the best investment is you guys. So number 1 is yourself. Number 2 is real estate. That's just me kind of investing in yourself. I'll go to any meetings, learning. I like education. I like networking. And so invest in yourself. Be intentional with your time. So for 3 years, I was on ABC on Real Estate Essentials on TV. It was fun. My kids would hear, hey, I saw you on TV, and the kids loved it. And it was a great run, but it really didn't do enough for me business-wise. I feel like it was kind of a waste of time. I would rather change people's lives by teaching them than be on TV. That's just my own personal feelings, my brand. So about 3 months ago, I switched out of being on TV and got back to what I do is teaching classes the last 4 years in each county on investing in real estate. And my business has grown even more than it was before. So be intentional with your time and your energy and resources. Be willing to try things, but if it doesn't work or it's not you, get back to what works. Take risks. So at some point in life, you're going to have to take risks. It's even having kids is taking risks. Getting married, right? Like it's all risky. You don't know what's on the other side. You hope. Everything's risk. I call it calculated risk versus, reckless risk. So when I was in graduate school, I had done real estate as far as developing, flipping homes, more construction side of real estate. And my brother's working at a bank doing mortgages. Well, they met me and said, we want to hire you on while I was getting my master's degree. And I went through and I was making $3,000 a month before taxes. Okay, this was 11 years ago. And my wife didn't work and we had a fourth kid on the way. Okay, I think that was very good. No, it was tough. But the director of our program said, learn it as like a paid internship kind of, you know. Problem was, is I had to use some of my savings as we're going through graduate school. So a year into graduate school, I love doing loans. I love being a partner with agents and builders and teaching them what I know and what I can be their value add to their business. But we were getting to the point we had no savings left. So I said to my wife, I said, hon, I love doing loans, but I want to go do my own thing. The bank's too hard, it's too stressful. People aren't happy. I had no license. I had no book of business. And I said, well, why don't you get your license and then go break off and go do something, a different company. I said, well, hon, I worked at the bank from 9 to 5. I go to the U from 6 to 10. I stay there, do homework till 12 or 1 in the morning, and then I go home and then I get up and do the same thing again. I don't have time. So I quit the bank with no savings, no license, and my wife didn't work, and I had to go and get my license, and I just crossed my fingers I passed my test the first time. And that's how I got into the business. Not saying it's smart, not saying I wouldn't recommend it, but at some point there's that risk you take.
What license?
So you have a mortgage, MLL, mortgage license, and you have to have a state and national test. Well, that was a risk, right? You guys agree? There's no savings, my wife doesn't work, and I have a license to do what I want to do. So that was risk. This year, risk. Most mortgage companies are cutting back, laying people off, and I decided I'm going to go buy an office space in the building down in Pleasant Grove. Some risk, but you know, I've got backup plans. I've already got something figured out. I'm the type I just want to go and make things happen. So at some point, take on risk. Okay, that's my feelings. Bring value to others. Okay, when you come into a relationship in business or whatever you guys are going to be, or as leaders too, bring value to other people. Okay, give more than you get, and it'll come back around to you. Enjoy what you do. Okay, so the show is great and it was fun in some ways, but it wasn't my brand. My brand was a little bit different. Make sure to network. Class here, social media, anybody you meet, network, right? The guy that just taught the class is teaching mortgages, and you heard me start talking to him, and now he's like, can I have your information? That's all I do all the time is network with people. Always continue to learn. Things are always adapting, life's changing, society changes, situations change, markets change. So always learn so they can adapt. People should know what you do. Okay. If you have a business or you're doing something, the questions in the United States, in America, they say, what do you do for work? That's one of the first couple of questions asked you is, what do you do? They should know what you do. You should be top of mind. Our brand is, when people think of us, back in the days of maybe Sheldon Worthington construction, how they think Sheldon Worthington real estate and mortgages. So people should know what you do, because if you're the best at what you would do, or you care the most, you work the hardest, they should use you. Okay? Don't feel like you're selling them. When you have a family member like I did, bought down in St. George, and they had the worst experience with another lender, makes me feel bad that I didn't get in front of them enough. That's my fault. Okay? It's not pushy sells, it's helping and serving people. Okay, I'm almost there. Then I can take some questions. So as far as college and schooling, take one day at a time. Don't bite it off. If when I was here, I was looking at getting a master's, it would have been overwhelming to me, right? I almost couldn't even fathom it, because in our family, that wasn't normal. But by going every day here and getting a little bit, it opened up another door, to open up another door, to open up another door. So just go, just don't give up, but just bite a little bit off at a time. Outwork others, right? So my brother and I, remember, he got an 18 on the ACT, I got a 17. He's going and got his master's. So did I. My wife, or my sister, got a 34. She had a scholarship for a college degree. She still doesn't have her associates. She's smarter than we are, by far. She's born smarter. We've learned to be smarter by learning. But she quit. She just has a hard time and she can't get through it. Mindset, there's two types of people. There's the people that make reasons and excuses to make things happen. And there's people that make excuses to not do things. Which one are you? Really, that's the difference between people that are successful and not, is the people that just their mind figures ways to make things happen. Other people try to talk themselves out of it. It's this mindset. When you realize how much you can control your mind, it's a whole different world you live in. When things get hard, plug through them, right? You guys are going to deal with hard times, whether that's in your personal life or work life or whatever, physical life. Just that's when you have the most growth, right? When I left the bank and I had no savings, or license, there was a lot of growth. I don't take for granted what I've been building in my career because it was hard. So when things get hard, don't quit, because right over that next hill is a lot of success. So the most growth happens in those harder times. So I kind of go through a quick list. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Do you guys have any questions? I can go through other stuff, but I want to ask questions. So raise your hands if you have questions about college, about tests, about real estate, about businesses.
So with real estate, I've looked kind of into it, but the popular consensus seems to be that you kind of need to know someone, and then you need to have a good amount of money to kind of start into real estate.
Yeah. So they always say in real estate, know people, knowledge, relationships, and that there's like pillars of them.
Mhm.
And that's why for me, I always try to connect people, right? Networking. But of my properties, so I flipped and developed properties, but my 5 long-term holds, my rentals, the one here in Taylor I bought with 3.5% down. We actually have a no money down option, and it's for a duplex as well. So you can get a duplex with no money down. And then my other property, 5% down in Highland. So that was 350, and now it's worth 1.1 million. I bought that with 5% down. I did a home equity line of credit on that one, pulled the equity and bought the other one. And then my 2 Orem properties, St. George, was 10% down. The biggest one is my commercial building, Pleasant Hill, that's 25%. But all of the other properties weren't even 20% down. It's 3 to 10%. So it's not as hard as people think it is. And we have a lot of the money down options.
And that's about 20,000.
Correct.
How much would you say you kind of need before get to this amount of money, and then really look into putting that into a down payment?
No money down. We do no money down right now. So you don't need money to get in. The more money you put down, the less your payment is, the more you're going to cash flow or lower payment, obviously. But you've got to get in at some point, right? So this gentleman was just talking about rates, right? The previous teacher, he was probably, based on the rate he's telling me, he was in the late 70s to early 80s is the period he's telling me. I can tell where the rate is just based on that. Well, my parents said at the time when I got a 7.5 rate FHA with FHA more insurance that I killed it, because they were at 13, they got a seller finance at 11. Okay, so right now, do you guys mind if I talk about the market right now for a second? Okay, so let me give you 2 options. Hopefully that's just me. So I'm going to give you option A and option B. Option A is you go to buy a house and you're going to pay $30,000 above appraisal, so $30,000 out of your bank account. You're going to pay your own closing costs. We'll say that's $10,000. That's $40,000 out of your own pocket. If you're no money down buyer, you probably can't compete. Okay, so you just like you want to buy it, unfortunately you can't. You look at 10 houses, 5 of them you like and 5 of them you don't. Then you end up having to choose one of the 5 you don't. You just need a roof over your head. Let's see what else. The benefit of that market is the rate payment's a little bit lower. Okay, so that's option A. Option B is you don't have to pay $30,000 above appraisal. You don't have to pay your own closing costs, and a lot of times you can do a 2-1 buy down or 3-2-1 buy down to lower the payment, which this gentleman's going to call me about. I was telling that other program. You can choose whatever house you want. You find 10 houses, you get to pick which one you want. You're happy with it. If you're a no money down buyer, you get to actually buy a home finally. The disadvantage on that one is the rate payment's a little bit higher, maybe $600 a month higher or $800 a month higher for 6 months or a year. So you have $40,000 out of your pocket on option A. Option B, you're $600, $800 a month higher for a year, 6 months, 2 years, and then you can refinance and rates drop. So who wants option A? Who wants option B? Welcome to my investment class. That's part of what I talk about. That is this market right now. So the Feds have raised rates to slow things down. But what they did is we were literally on this, almost like they put gas on the fire when COVID hit. They didn't want the market to go into recession. So they started pumping $5 trillion into our economy. And part of that was to buy down what's called rates on mortgage-backed securities. Well, rates at 2 or 3% are awesome, but that's not sustainable. That's not realistic. But they did that and it just kept things just going crazy. The issue back then was there wasn't enough inventory. Well, what happened when they raised rates? They literally slammed on the brakes on the freeway as we were all speeding, causing an accident in the market. But what happens when there's an accident on the freeway? What happens to the traffic behind us?
Slower.
Does it go away?
No, it's
No,
there.
so it's still there. And when builders are slowing back because they're nervous of the market, it's not getting us more inventory. So my personal worry is that when rates drop, it's going to be a madhouse again. It's going to go back to option A. So that's why I have so many people buying right now, knowing they could refinance at some point. So anyway, that's my rules.
What's a 3, 2, 1 buy down?
Yeah, so if you have, do you have a marker?
Yeah.
Can I use it? So he was talking to this other professor talking about ARM, so 3, 2, 1 buy now. So I'll make up a number. Let's say that the interest rate today is 6%, just in the market. Well, what happens is you get the seller to pay and subsidize this money in this other account, escrow account. It's held on by the servicing company. And they subsidize your payment as if the first year payment's at 4% and the second year's at 5%, and then maxes out at 6%. So we have to qualify the person at higher rates, so it's affordable. But the first year they get their payment $600 lower because the seller put money in the account for you to subsidize that payment difference on other payments. And then it goes up the next year and it goes up. We have a 3 2 months ago, 3, 4, 5, 6. The nice thing is that that's $20,000 in that account. And the first year you only use up 5,000. When you refinance, that 15,000 gets applied towards your principal, so you have more equity.
Mm-hmm.
So these are hot topics, number 10 hot topics of programs. But most people don't know that they're out there. So any more questions on that? Does that make sense?
So you actually, even though the rate is 6%, you get 4%?
Yeah, the first year of the payment, let's say the payments make up a number 3,000. This one is 2,400 and then 2,700. First
So-
year's this, second year's this.
So what is their qualifications for that? Is there any qualifications?
No, it's just based on the conventional or FHA and the seller will pay that money upfront. But a lot of our builders were willing to do this because they don't want to lower their purchase price because now their comps and their appraisal is off that lower balance. So why not give the buyer a benefit and they get a benefit? Those are big.
So you're saying instead of, you go into somebody selling a house, you go and say, look, I don't want to pay that price, I want to pay the lower price. They say, well, here, we'll do this for you.
Yeah.
And you'll get the lower price, but you're not going to get it up front.
Yeah, they're gonna net, so let's say that, let's say the market was like 400,000 price of the house.
Yeah.
And usually you're gonna go in the previous market, you're gonna pay 430 and your closing costs. Well, now they've already reduced it to like 380, but it's still sitting. And they just wanna get it off the books, they wanna get moving or whatever. So they say, well, I'll sell it to you for 380, but out of that equity, I'm gonna give you 20,000 to offset that payment. So they're netting less than the 380.
Okay.
They're giving to us separately. Yeah, it's a really, really good program.
So that's the best thing to do right now.
That's a really good option right now.
Okay, so I have a question related with what are the things that you consider most important to pay attention when you are studying for your bachelor's degree?
Sorry for what?
Like, what do you consider the most important things when you are studying your bachelor's degree?
So as far as the bachelor's degree,
Yeah, like in that part of your life,
yeah.
what, like not looking retrospective, what do you think was the most like important thing for you, or the most important thing?
Yeah, so when you're getting your associates, you're taking a lot of generic classes, right? Generals and like English and math and right stuff that kind of you just need to take. Some you like, some you don't. You get into your bachelor's, it's more of your own focus. And so you start enjoying it more because it's more intentional. It's something you're going to go into, hopefully as a career. Ideally, that's what you want. You know, my kids, it's not a question they're going to college, but if they want to do business, they're going to go into business or finance. If they're going to be an entrepreneur, there's entrepreneur degrees. There's interior design, there's sales up at Weaver State. There's just a lot of different options. But once you get into those, it's a lot easier to study because it's something you're passionate about. And then I would always network with other people. So everybody in your class, even our masters, somebody has different knowledge than you in some other area. So we study together, we get groups together because they may share a perspective that now it connects on what I'm trying to learn because they have a different background or a different experience. And I think that's the master's way. I had a finance and construction real estate, and we had a guy that was a planner. We had a guy that was an architect, right? Different things. And we could help each other in each class learn. So I would network and learn in your bachelor's with other people in the same class, different perspectives. Any other questions?
How do you feel about purchasing a home to do Airbnb?
So that's on my slides and that's a hot topic right now. If you're looking long-term, so the market right now is way up here, and then values are up to the affordability rates. And then eventually real estate does this, right? Even if it goes up and down over time, it appreciates. But even if I have a little bit dip or more of a dip, we just don't know what that low is. And once rates drop, that low is going to probably start going up pretty quick. Okay. But if you can manage to afford that payment and rent it out as Airbnb, then it's a good investment long-term, right?
Well, it's more than renting it.
Yeah. So it's more than renting it because it's nightly. So Airbnb means it's a nightly rental, right? And so you get a higher premium, but it's because there's more work and more risk to it. Again, risk and reward. Okay,
What's
but
the risk?
somebody doesn't rent it out, somebody
What?
trashes it, somebody doesn't rent it out, somebody doesn't trash it, it's more work. But when you guys, as you guys are going through your careers, some people have a pension, some people won't. I put into a 401k and IRA, I maxed those out. I have a mortgage team for my retirement. I invest in my team, and then I'm heavily in real estate. The reason I like real estate is it doesn't discriminate age. So right now I cash flow and literally I don't have a mortgage payment of all my properties. They pay themselves because they cash flow and pay each other. So I feel like I'm young and don't have a payment. And then my Pleasant Grove office, my company will pay that payment. So I'm buying a property for $1 million and they make the payment for me instead of paying somebody else for rent.
With your investment properties, what was your first one's like listing price? And like, how did you decide to go?
Yeah. So the first one I bought, well, I was 20 going to Salt Lake Community College, where I was trying to figure out life. And my dad said to me, quit buying cars. What do cars typically do? Besides during COVID, right? And I bought this house right across the street, right? 8 houses from Eisenhower Junior High across the street here. My dad said, you need to buy this house because you're at Salt Lake Community College. Quit, don't waste money on rent. I've rented for 1 year of my life. I said, don't waste money on rent. So I ended up buying that house for $124,000. It was FHA. I had to put 3.5% down. And literally the first thing that went into that house was a pool table. Right where the dining table went was a bachelor pad. And that's when I started house hacking, but not knowing that's what it was. But it was just by chance. I didn't know. I think I was so young. I didn't know the risk because I was just excited to get a home. And I had to go and qualify like normals before things got really easy. This was in 2002. But seeing that value or doubled in value within a couple of years, and I wasn't paying rent, I started realizing there's so much money in real estate done the right way.
Just out of curiosity, my husband and I were trying to like find duplexes and kind of do that route. What are some like major factors that you look at other than like, of course, like price? Like
Yeah.
what are some other factors that you look at before deciding, okay, this is the
On
one that I
investment?
want to invest in?
So I like to be by colleges. I like to be by free, like I-215, I-15 as far as main corridors. So access, hospitals are really good as far as renting them out. So this one's right across the street. The one in St. George is more of a vacation home, as a pool, and people use it as like a getaway. So that is always booked. But then like my Orem property is walking distance to UVU. And then my Highland House is just our personal home. But I try to find schools, hospitals, roadways where it's easy to get onto like different areas. Then it's people look at those pretty quick.
How do you do pricing so that like everything pays off?
Yeah, so I know how many times.
You have plenty of time, there's 20 minutes.
Okay, so do you want, how many people like know Dave Ramsey? Anybody, raise your hand if you know Dave Ramsey. Okay. Do you want me to teach about leveraging money and cash? Are you guys okay with this?
Go for it.
Okay, do you have a razor?
So we're.
Oh, they're right there.
Maybe that blue thing, maybe?
Is it this right here?
Yeah.
Jesus, this is not what it looked like when I was here. That's what it looked like when I was here. What the heck is this? Okay, so I'm gonna give you an example of, I'm gonna talk, hopefully this answers your question, but I wanna talk to you guys about leveraging money, okay? So should you do a 30-year mortgage or a 15 and why?
at 30 and then pay it down and then I'm looking to like a 10.
Okay, what about you? If you had to choose between a 30 and a 15 and you're Dave Ramsey, what's he gonna say?
15,
Why?
because while the interest might be higher, you're paying less in the long run.
Okay,
That's more money in your pocket in the long run.
okay, makes sense? That's pretty straightforward. There's nothing scientific. Dave Ramsey, when it comes to life insurance and savings, I'm a huge Dave Ramsey fan. When it comes to real estate, the way my life has turned out, I do things a little bit different. Okay. I don't ever do a 15-year. I did my master's in real estate and finance. I run numbers all the time. I've never done a 15 on me personally. The benefit of the 50 is a lower interest rate, lower cost, right? Like you're going to save some money. But for me, I feel like the risk doesn't outweigh it. The opportunity costs don't outweigh it. So for example, if somebody has a mortgage and it's $3,500 on its 15-year versus $2,000 on a 30-year, as a loan officer, I only worry about what's required on the credit report. So it's easier for me to qualify them for more properties and leverage more money. If they're to 15, it's harder for me to get them qualified. But I can pay extra on the 30 and still do the same thing. It won't be 15 years. It'll be like 16 to 17 years. So I don't get fixated on rates. I look at business and opportunities. And so what I do is I set mine on auto pays. If it's 15, I'll still pay it off in 16 to 17 years. Okay, makes sense so far? But let me show you something as far as real estate and leveraging money. I had a buddy named Chris Sampson, so I'll put him here. He had a house in West Jordan for $250 and his house payment was $900 a month. He was off Backus Highway about 90th South out there. And him and I went to Taylorsville together. Well, then there's me with my Taylorsville property and I was $250 a few years after I bought it and my house payment was $900. We're almost identical, same age, same situation, right? Well, I said to Chris, I said, why don't you go rent this house out for $1,500 and go buy another property? And he's a huge Dave Ramsey fan. So what do you think he told me? Anybody knows Dave Ramsey? What did he say? What did Dave Ramsey say?
Go for the shorter one.
Huh?
Go for the shorter one.
What else?
Pay it off.
Pay it off. Pay this off before you go get another property. You guys will hear that from Dave Ramsey. And if you know, I'm not against those things, but for me, it's a little bit different story. So let's say he's got a 30-year loan, and let's say he's 25 at the time, and he pays extra. How many years do you think it'll take him to pay it off? Just a rough idea. 20 years, right? That's fair. So now he's 45 years old, and this house doubles in price. He's got 500,000 equity, and now he's starting to save up for second property. Have I lost anybody yet? Does that make sense? Okay. So I said, okay, Chris, you go do you. I'm going to go do something different. So I took a home equity and a credit out on this property. It was ready for $1,500, and I had it for like $200. So cash flowing some money. And I went and bought a property in Highland for $350, and now it's worth $1.1 million. Okay. Then I pulled money out of this house, and when I furnished the house in St. George, I pulled a HELOC on this that I bought for $325, and it's now worth $650. And then 3 years ago, I went back to this house and did a cash out refinance. I went and bought a property in Orem for $425, and it's now worth $525. So you think I have a little bit more risk going on than him, right? But the thing is this one cash flows really well now, a lot, because rents went up a lot. This one cash flows or pays for itself. This one cash flows, and between the cash flow and these two, they pay for my primary residence. So what's my payment for me personally? Zero. But what's his payment been over 20 years? He's had to pay it. He's been paying the whole thing. I saw him at the Salt Lake Stars game 2 weeks ago. I haven't seen him since this conversation. And he says to me, Sheldon, I sold my house in West Jordan. I went and bought an Edge home. And I'm so excited I'm going to be out of debt on my house in 7 years. Like, okay. Well, now this number just went to like 50. Right? And I said, Chris, what are you doing? Because at 50, all of these are paid off. So not only do I have no debt, but they're all paying cash flow. I'm retired at that. So he's kind of like, oh man, I should have done it different. Nothing against Dave Ramsey, but if you do it the right way, You can structure it, and I paid full price on this property in Taylorville. The price is 124,
And what's it now?
550. But at the time, it didn't seem like a screaming deal. It's just over time it appreciated. Over time, rents had went up, right? Does that answer anything at all on your
Yeah.
rent question? Any other questions?
Yeah, I was just curious as to how you're able to qualify yourself for a house during college.
Yeah,
Did you have like a really like high paying job?
I was making $15 an hour.
Really?
Yeah, and I qualified because the payment was like $750, $900.
Yeah, I think that's kind of one, maybe the misconceptions is that like.
Affordability.
You need to, you need to make a lot of money
Yeah.
to, get anything.
So right now, with the 2-1 buy down, 3-2-1 buy downs, it helps with buying multiple properties like the other unit, it helps. When you vacate a home right here and you put a lease agreement, that pays for that. Now it's an asset and a liability. So I'm only qualifying for one property. I only qualify for all. They're all taking care of themselves. So once you buy their second home, it's either by your third, it's either by your fourth, it just starts snowballing. But the other scenario is we can do what's called home ready or boarding income. So my son that's in my UVU townhome, I have a lease with him and he rents out the rooms and collects that rent and pays me. And in a year, I can use that rent as income to help him qualify. So his job plus that will help him qualify. That's not to get him house poor or in a bad situation. It's just when he graduates college, he'll probably get a career job or get married or something to change. So it helps him get a home sooner than later.
And then one more addition to that.
Okay.
Yeah, so, me and my girlfriend have been talking about maybe, buying a house, but I don't work, I'm a full-time student.
Mhm.
And she makes somewhere around like 50K, like just like regular,
Yeah,
income.
yeah.
But she makes like 50K in like stock.
Uh-huh.
Would that, like, in terms of real estate, would that be like, would they qualify her as someone making 6 figures or only 50?
It would be, so the stock would be separate.
Okay.
Can be variable income and she's not getting it to pay bills with. So they're only look at what she takes home, but it can be gross before taxes. So it'd be just the 50,000.
Gotcha.
Okay, so listen to what you're saying with the Dave Ramsey way and the way you're doing it.
Yeah.
Something I noticed is that whenever I watch like the Dave Ramsey videos, he's specifically his audience, those like his intended audience, I believe, are the people that have gotten themselves in so much debt that they need to just get themselves out.
For sure.
Would that be like a key thing between your plan and his plan, or it's like yours is to get better?
Yeah.
But his is
To get back to
just
zero.
Get back
Yeah,
to
to the starting line. For me, I would say that again, risk, you got to take risk at some point. Some people say, should I just do bankruptcy and start all over? I'm like, well, how long does it take you to pay off your debt to get back to zero? Maybe it does make sense.
the
right?
tax issue with bankruptcy.
Yeah, but it might be cheaper than doing bankruptcy for 3 years, right? Versus renting again for 3 years and then just got to pony up and pay the taxes and start buying a house at some point, right? But no, Dave Ramsey, he has a different audience, but it's still, this applies for people that are at zero, they're at baseline, but their life will not change unless they start doing something. Right? I always say, if you're not going to invest in real estate, invest into a business. If you're not investing in business, invest in something else. Staying in status quo doesn't get you anywhere nowadays. Really, 6 figures nowadays is just to survive. That's my feelings. You need to start doing something else. I had a gal that came out with me. She had 40,000 in her 401k, was nervous about prime properties. And I said, well, how long have you been saving? She said, 20 years. I said, okay, in the next 20 years, what's your balance? She's like, probably 50,000, 60. What's scarier? 60,000 bank account or making a change with a business or real estate? You got to take your shot. You got to do something.
That, like when you said like 6 figures, like is pretty much what it's like pretty much the minimum nowadays. That is true. Last year, when I was doing taxes for Jackson, I was figuring out what I need to move out. Like if I wanted to buy, like go down to Arizona and buy like a 5-digit property, because there's a ton of housing is still stupid cheap.
Yeah.
I was like, holy cow, I need like 120,000 to move out and live by myself for 1 year.
Yep. And it's going to change.
The first.
That's why you have 2 household incomes a lot. That's what happened in California, right? It's happening here. But another question. I got yours. Did somebody, you raise your hand? They'll come over to you. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'd like to know, like, sometimes I see people like they want to, like, like like show off like things, you know, like they like to buy a Louis Vuitton or like Gucci, like
Yeah.
clothes and like a Ferrari or
For sure.
Lamborghini, you know. But like, what do you think about these things? Like, do you think it is something like good to have on mind, or like how, like, what do you think about spending in things that are just for showing off, or
Yeah.
like just for buying a status that is really not like
Okay.
real?
I call it lifestyle.
Yeah,
Okay.
like a lifestyle.
So I'm gonna talk real estate with lifestyle, I'm gonna talk about personal products, consumer products. So real estate, when I was living here, my house payment refinance was down $750 on my Taylor house here. Who would like a $750 house payment? It was like a car payment, felt like, right? I'm like, oh, so nice. Now I was like, let's move to Highland because the kids don't care if our house is paid off. My kids really care about their neighborhood, their friends and experiences. So that at some point my mind went to lifestyle, like there's memories too. You have to go through this life and enjoy life a little bit. But all of those were actually good investments for us. Out of our 5 properties, we use or occupy either my son or travel or whatever, 4 of the 5, but they all get paid by somebody else. So we get the lifestyle and we get investments. I live off, if my wife knew how much I invest about almost 50 to 60% of my paycheck into real estate, an IRA, into a deferred comp plan, all that. She would probably kill me if she knew. But we live a good life. We're not struggling, but we're not living a lavish lifestyle because I don't want to expect that and then things change and you struggle, you know. And when you start seeing people that live that lifestyle, half of them really make that much money and half of them don't, it's for show.
Yeah, because like there's like brokies that just like want to like find like Gucci, or,
Yeah.
but they don't have nothing of money, you know. But there are people who are just like humble and they're just like, I have like $10 million like in my bank account.
When you're a loan officer like me, you see the truth, and so I don't judge people. Because one day they could be broke, went through divorce, bankruptcy, and then the next year they could be well off, and vice versa, they could be well off and lose everything. But also, I try not to worry about them because that may what drives them. That's why they're here and enjoy life. It is what it is, but that's just not my style. I wouldn't do it. Let's put it that way. I would do it. You can invest really fast with that money.
So 2 things actually. So basically you're saying, don't make your lifestyle lavish, but make it good and make
Yeah.
it enjoyable, just not living high life.
There's a balance. My wife's dad died at 50 from a heart attack. She's like, he could have saved for retirement his whole life and never got there, got to enjoy it. So there's that balance for sure.
And then earlier you said that like your son's paying off a loan, right?
Mhm.
And then he's renting out that property that's on that.
Yeah, so he gets a discounted rent and he rents the other rooms to his roommates.
This sounds an awful like what Verizon has to do with the rest of with the remaining, it was like the remainder of their cell towers.
Okay.
I used to work for T-Mobile as well. We bought all their towers.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's good. My son gets experience to live in a townhome with a 2-car garage, his own room, bathroom, cheaper than an apartment, and then his roommates pay just market rent. That was my goal of buying it, was to let my kids stay there.
So it's
Oh,
like.
sorry, I'll come back to you. Go ahead. Yeah, let me get her real quick. She's doing it. Is okay?
Yeah, I have 2 questions.
Uh-huh.
One is, when do you think is a good time to buy a house, like on the market, in the market world, not like, when is a good time?
To buy a home?
And then the second question is, do you think refinancing your house is or like refinancing your house to buy another house, or like refinancing your house to
Get out of debt, lower payment or anything?
no, maybe like this. Refinancing, do you think refinancing your house to buy a new house and here you start over again? Do you think the outlet on the time
Is worth it?
Yeah, it's worth it.
So you remember I said option A and option B, and everybody said option B. That's right now. It's a good time to buy. It may not look like it because when people have fear, they stop buying, but other people jump in for opportunity. We still know that dip is. We're in a dip compared to last year. Right now it's better to buy than it was like a year or 2 ago, not 3 or 4 years ago. Okay, so right now is a good time to buy. I feel like it's always a good time to buy because the market goes like this, but eventually it's going to go up. So you got to start investing at some point. Because if you keep talking yourself out of doing something, you'll never do it. If you're like, well, I'll get college done before we have kids and we'll do this. I'll wait till I'm done college to get married. You just got to do it just to get going. But leveraging money. So this property, right, I've had 20 years, but I have a 30-year loan on it, right? Because I cashed out a refinance to buy this one. So I restarted that timeline. But I've got about $4 million, just under $4 million, between the size of my commercial property over here that I didn't put on here. And I've only put in like $300,000 out of my pocket for $4 million because of leveraging the money, but it's pushing them out, allow me to get another property because I'm young, I can do that. If I'm maybe 50 or 60, that's a different story. But this is the investment class. These are like 2 parts of like 15 I go over in the investment class, and I teach next Thursday night in South Jordan off Redwood Road. So if you guys want to come, you're more than welcome to. It's a free class. But who else had a question? Then come around and I'll come back to you if I have time, because we're probably done.
We're close to it.
So my question was, you said you bought your first house when you were 20 years old?
21, yeah.
21. So how did you get a loan for that house?
Yeah.
Did you say the first time you bought was like a 30 years loan?
30-year mortgage, FHA, I had to put 3.5% down.
So.
And I made $15 an hour, which nowadays is probably like 25 to 30, because obviously $15, 20 something years ago is different than $15 now.
But how could you do that at 21 where like, as you said, like you hadn't even had your master yet. So like, how were you sure you were going to be able to pay that mortgage every month? I don't know if it was not.
I wasn't. I just didn't know any better. I was young. I just didn't want to pay rent. That's all I knew. I just trusted them and they'd go buy a property. And I'm like, what? Like, that's risk. What if somebody doesn't rent it out? What something happens, right? But which is riskier, going wasting money on rent or go buying a property and figuring things out. At some point you're going to buy, unless you guys want to rent forever, you're going to buy a property, right? So my roommates, though, I knew what the going rent was and how easy at Salt Lake Community College it would be to rent out those rooms across the street. And they paid enough to pay the whole payment. So there wasn't really any risk for me, I feel like.
Yes. So did you make any profit on those payments they were making you? Like, did you have enough to pay the mortgage and enough to keep it?
Not when I was there, because I kind of was just going through college being like, I don't have rent. So I felt like it was a luxury. But I probably put like $25,000 to $30,000 over a couple of years when I was single, finishing in the basement, redoing the backyard. And then I graduated from Slick with, a property that doubled in value. So I had no student loan debt and I had about $125,000 of equity in the house. That's something like that's pretty good gig. But the payment on that now, the cashing out, it's like $1,200. I rent it for $2,500, so I cashed out well on that one. Any other questions?
Yeah, I was just finishing.
Okay.
So what makes it to be this time, it's a good time? What are the benefits of it? Because always people say like when the interest is low, so then it's a good time, because I didn't understand very good.
The A versus B. You're saying when the market's slow, it's a good time to buy?
Yeah, when the interest is low.
Yeah, because right now it's the market's slow, right? And people are not buying as much because they're all fearful. Everybody's sitting on the fence. They're all nervous, right? But it's because the people don't explain the A versus B option. All they hear is articles that say rates and payments are higher, which is true. It's a true article. But then they sit there with fear. We get led fear in the news. It's just how the news works. So you have people that don't know in detail what's really going on, talking about rates and payments being higher, which is true. And everybody's holding back, waiting. Then when rates drop, they're all going to rush and it's going to be this bidding war. Like, I hope I'm wrong, but I'd be shocked if that doesn't happen. So I have my buyers go out and try to take advantage of lowballing an offer to a seller. Why not? Go create your own market. Go lowball an offer. Just lowball 20. Who cares? You get the house you want, then you refinance later. So they're taking advantage of a scary market to other people. But to us, we're not scared because you get educated. It's not as scary. Who else?
Yeah, no, I was just curious. I know that like with the market, we've seen like a huge decrease in prices this last year. And I was just wondering like kind of advice, or there any like kind of like ways that you could determine like trying to find the bottom,
Find the bottom.
and not like be catching, buy now and then you should have bought like in 5 months because prices went way lower. How would you navigate?
So
that
when you know the bottom is when it's on its way up. That's when you'll know, because the bottom comes down here right, like this, and it dips, you don't know it's hit bottom until it's on its way up, because it won't actually show a trend coming up. And you may miss the opportunity. So it's hard to always time the bottom. What we do know is it's dropped so much from last year that we're in that dip, and the government holds the cards right now. They're trying to handle inflation. Challenge is a year-over-year report. So we're really going off last year's data, not last month's. So eventually that's going to catch up probably in March, April, May. We're going to see inflation slow down. And when that does, they'll start lowering rates. When they do that, it's probably going to start tipping back up. So we've had a huge reduction, and we have all these other benefits, the buy downs and costs. They go towards your equity. So you could, if you did a 2-1 buy down of that 20,000, they only use 5,000. Yeah, you have $15,000 to play with. You know, if the market goes down $15,000, right? But then when it comes back up, you're like, man, that was a good time to buy. You won't see that till the upside. Everybody's trying to time it here, and then they're all going to jump at the same time, and it's going to go up really fast potentially. How are you in time?
Well, we're out of time. Just, but I'm gonna add a note. So one of the things that you can do is look at your rent right now and compare that to the option to buy. So what you did, right, was you saw they could rent these other rooms to pay for your mortgage. Can you do that right now? Yeah, you can find houses right now where you can live in a room and rent the other rooms and it'll pay for your mortgage. Those opportunities are there right now. You find it, that's a good time to buy. That, it doesn't matter the price, that's a good time to buy. You guys get that?
Yeah.
So if you can find a duplex and live in half of it, and you're paying 500 less than you are in rent right now, it's a good time to buy. Yeah.
So 2 things. So basically sort of be like a middle, you're renting out a property, you're living, but then like you rent out like most of it or a good portion of it for someone else to live in. They pay you, you pay the mortgage.
Yep.
And then I was actually thinking this question popped in my head. So I've actually thought about like building a property, but more of like a rental property.
Mhm.
That the multi-unit, sort of like an apartment complex, because I see a lot of apartments out here, and oh my gosh, it's like the people here forget that it snows.
Yeah.
I was thinking, if I were to build a nice what would be better, build a cheap complex or a nicer complex? Because I know the cheaper one will be smaller in the cost up front, but the nicer one will pay more in the long.
Yeah, so I always invest, either go cheap or go expensive. I don't go in the middle. You go cheap, you're gonna attract cheap. So you're gonna get what you pay for. If you go expensive, you're gonna get people that are really OCD and very like want top premium. You're gonna get really good renters, but you gotta go with premium. I like to go the premium side.
Well, let's, thank you for coming, and we can stay after and ask a question.
Yeah, if you have a personal question, anytime I can stick around.